the kind of illness I have, it is one that you need to take medication every day, because we don't actually have a sort of cure for this condition. Cure anyway, when it comes to cancer, it's still quite tricky because it can always come back. Physically, I might be able to go through a day quite okay, but it takes a lot of not just medication, but it takes a lot of mental kind of strength and willpower to sort of come up with what seems like a very normal appearance.
Alright guys, just going to wrap up the week with an inspirational interview, inspirational chat with Urvashi Prasad. She's the director of NITI Aayog, but the reason she joins me today is because of her fight with cancer. It is a treatment that is currently underway, and what it takes to get up every morning and go to work while you're still with the uncertainty, the anxiety and more. So there's a face that you social media, but there is so much more that goes on behind the scenes, and Urvashi joins me today to speak about her journey.
There's not a better time to end the week, right, for reflection and introspection and thought and inspiration. So thanks for doing this. And the reason I came across Urvashi's post on LinkedIn, where she had spoken about what it takes on a daily basis to go through life at the moment, endless rounds of treatment, medication, anxiety, depression. Urvashi, let's just begin by I know that you told me your treatment is still undergoing, so do you want to just speak about what it is that you're going through at the moment physically?
The kind of illness I have, it is one that you need to take medication every day, because we don't actually have a sort of cure for this condition. Cure anyway, when it comes to cancer, it's still quite tricky because it can always come back, and that's actually what adds to a lot of the anxiety. But so my medication is something I have to take every day. It is heavy medication, so it causes a lot of side effects, and so I have to then take additional medication to manage some of those side effects. And a lot of these are actually not necessarily physical, but certainly, also mental, psychological. You do go through things like anxiety, and as I said, I also take medication for depression, and which I started last year, soon after my diagnosis, because I was in real shock and I was really not able to function at all. So I needed that medication to at least help me to function. Physically, I might be able to go through a day quite okay, but it takes a lot of not just medication, but it takes a lot of mental kind of strength and willpower to sort of come up with what seems like a very normal appearance.
And you told me that it's actually genetic yet not genetic in a sense. Do you want to just elaborate about that?
Yeah, it's actually a gene which is there in all of us, and it's called the ALK gene. But for some unknown reason, and it's the scientists don't know the reason yet, in some people it switches on. It's actually supposed to be switched off. In normal healthy individuals, it's switched off. But for some reason, and no one knows the trigger, there's lots of guesswork that it could be pollution, some sort of emotional trauma, and when it switches on, it simply put, it leads to the uncontrolled multiplication of cells, which is what cancer is. So it is a gene related problem, but it is not an issue which is inherited. No one in my family has it. Nobody had ever heard of it. I had never heard of it, even though I'm trained in life sciences and public health itself. I had no clue what this was about.
You've been taking treatment now for the last year, is it?
Yes, just over a year.
And you say that this is a lifelong treatment.
Yeah, as of now, because the challenge is that if you stop treatment, then it's probably going to come back. In my case, there's definitely not any cure that they have yet, and so you actually need to always take these medications. In fact, the problem is that sometimes you become resistant to a medication, which is, also a phase I just went through. And then you need to go on to another new medication. So it's not even so simple that you just stay on one medication, your whole life.
The side effects that you were speaking about of this medication, which makes you having to take other medications to control that. What kind of side effects are there?
A lot of them depend on the specific kind of medicine you are taking. So I was on a different medication, as I said, for about 11 months, and now my medication has just changed. The previous one, for instance, it really slowed down my heart rate. It would go down to the 40s even. It would really reduce my blood pressure, so I would feel very low. I would feel fatigue, through the day. So really, to function needed, that's where that extra effort, needed to come in, because I would feel generally very, very low. But the current one that I'm on, this one, has a tendency to raise your cholesterol levels. So now I'm actually on statin, which is a drug that people take when they have high cholesterol levels, because I need to protect my heart. I've gone from someone who had no cholesterol issues, no sugar issues, and suddenly, I have this drug-induced issue. So I need to, cover for that. There might be other stuff that comes up, because, often the effects don't show immediately. But they show up when you have longer use of the medicine. It all depends on the particular drug that you're on at that point in time.
Let's talk about the mental health aspect of it. Urvashi, you've spoken about the fact that you are on medication for depression and anxiety, and how does that unfold? It's actually very fair to expect that from someone who is going through such issues and such serious issues. How do you go about your day? Let me put it very simply.
It's I think something that you should totally expect. And in fact, I find it surprising that so many doctors, so many oncologists are actually not trained to address these issues. I mean, mine certainly wasn't. He didn't really know what to say to me, and that was surprising, because you're breaking the worst possible news to somebody, and that person is a human being, with emotions and with a whole life, and in this case you're breaking this news to a very young person, who's just 35, and I was trying to build my life with my husband. And what do you expect? Obviously the person is going to go into depression, is going to have a lot of anxiety about the future, about everything. Actually, it's a gap in our health system as well, that our doctors, clinicians are not better trained to deal with such things. But yeah, so for me, I think I very proactively reached out for help. I made it very clear that I need help. I had a lot of suicidal ideation, and so I was very vocal about it, that look, this is going to really make me kill myself unless I actually do something. So then I was put onto this medication, and I have to say that it's, touch wood, it's really helped me function. I can, as I said, I can go about a normal day. Nobody in the office actually knew that I was dealing with this until I actually spoke about it. I can do conversations like these, which would not be possible. So I think there's nothing wrong in, reaching out for help. And I think sometimes you have to be proactive and do it yourself, because unfortunately, even a trained health provider might not be, in a position where they can, help you or think about this dimension at all. Everybody thinks of cancer and they think, okay, it's a physical disease, you take the medicines and, you get on with managing the side effects and that's it. But that's actually not true. The whole mental, psychological aspect of this is huge. And also relationships, like I said, with my husband or with my mother or with anyone, they undergo a lot of stress as well. So for that too, you need some sort of support.
I was just going to actually come to that. It's not just the person going through it, but it's also that entire, the system around that person that also needs, I guess, some kind of speaking with.
Completely, we don't have that kind of ecosystem at all, where we have support for caregivers, as we call them, and caregivers also can play different roles. Like, in this case, my mother is very actively involved in my whole, she will look at every detail of my diet and my medication. My husband doesn't get so much into that, but he's very involved, I would say, emotionally. He's very invested emotionally in what is happening with his wife, and so he needs a lot of support as well, and he needs a different kind of support to be able to go through this, because he's watching other couples and they are going through their life, and they're going on normal vacations and having kids, and then here's us, we're just running between hospital and home, and really having to deal with very tough times. So it's very hard on him as well, and he's of course now sought counseling, professional counseling. But yeah, I think even in society in general, we still don't make it very easy for people to talk about these things, so a lot of people just keep it within them.
When you look at it from a perspective of a society, Urvashi, it's two things, isn't it? I mean, we don't really speak about cancer as such. A. B, we definitely don't speak about therapy, going to therapy. So that's a big minus for us and for people, who are undergoing cancer or undergoing any other serious illness. The fact that we don't even speak about ordinary, non-illness people who are looking to get help. That
Yeah.
Why would we speak about how do we bridge this gap?
We need to, there's a lot of stigma, and I think we really need to, that is why, talk more about it, and more freely and more openly, and I think, like I said, that with a serious illness, it's of course something that you should almost expect, that somebody is also going to come with these issues. It'll be very surprising if somebody doesn't. But I think even if it's not a serious illness, if it's some other trigger, there's so many reasons why people actually need therapy, or then even need medication. I think medication is also very stigmatized, in terms of how can you be taking a drug for this. And that's why I always say it so openly that yes, I have to, and what is wrong with that if it allows me to function. So I think we need to do a lot to address the stigma. Of course, even as society, the more we talk about these issues openly and freely, and I think those of us who do have a platform, there's so many people like me who are dealing with similar issues, but they don't have this kind of a platform to come and speak. And that's why I try to make the most of whatever platform I get to talk about these issues. Hopefully it'll encourage others to do the same.
What prompted you actually to take out that post?
I always post very, to the point, work related, okay, I went to this event, or I spoke at this panel, or, and I just thought, for once I'll actually put out something that goes behind, all of this, behind the scenes in a way, or behind that outwardly kind of persona that people see. And in fact, a lot of people wrote to me after that, oh, we've met you at so many events, and we could have never thought of this. So I wanted to share that, because I think there's nothing wrong in being real and being yourself, even though it is social media. And I actually got a lot of support, which I felt very happy about, from people I know. But there was a lot of support, a lot of people I did with what I was saying, and some people even reached out to me that we are going through similar things. So I think the experience was obviously very, very positive of putting out something like that. It's completely contrary to what anyone in my family would do. My mother thinks I'm way too open, and I put out way too much on social media. So she certainly doesn't approve. I just sharing my experience, my reality, and actually, getting support from a lot of people, resonating with a lot of people.
You've also been speaking a fair amount, on healthcare per se. I've seen some of your posts. There, there's a lot around healthcare in those posts. Treatments of serious illnesses are exorbitant in the country. It's just the very fortunate who can actually afford to go all the way with these treatments. that's another issue that strikes out, doesn't it?
A lot of the cutting edge research, also means that the drugs that come out of it are actually very expensive. And so, you have immunotherapies, various kind of immunotherapies for different types of cancers, for instance, and they are so expensive. There's hardly anyone who will be able to actually, access that, or out of pocket. If they do it, it would be a huge burden. So yes, I think we do need to do, a lot more in terms of making those kind of therapies affordable, accessible. Of course, now there are some insurance programs for the poor, especially, but they don't necessarily cover everything. And so we need to constantly see how we can improve that. And also for the middle class, because a lot of the middle class also still don't have health insurance. That's also a segment that we really need to look at. So I think public and private, we need massive collaboration. We need a lot of working together with the pharma companies in this, those who are doing this cutting edge research, those who are bringing these drugs to India, to make sure that we can make them affordable. This is going to take a lot of work still.
Coming back to you, and your day, is it a daily grind, or are there ups and downs?
Mostly it'll be a fairly stable kind of routine, but like I said, that there is unpredictability with this medication. So sometimes there's physical side effects that come up which you didn't anticipate. Also your immunity takes a hit somewhere. So somewhere you also have a tendency to acquire more infections than you did before. So you might be just dealing with some infection which has come up, just because you might have a much lower immunity now. But I think mentally also, through the day, I would say I have, ups and downs. It's not even from day to day, but through the day, I choose to write and talk about it, because I think that why should you have to internalize all this struggle? Why should I have to internalize that struggle? Why can't I talk about it?
You mentioned that you speak to your husband speaks to a therapist. Do you also speak to a therapist?
I didn't sort of feel the need at this point. But yes, when I actually started off and before I was on the medication, and yeah, I mean, the medication does really help. I mean, obviously it's not about recommending it to anyone. Everybody has to take their own. I actually start feeling, if 1 or 2 days I miss it or I skip it, it is difficult for me. So yeah, of course these medications have to be taken under supervision, and you can't just play around with them, but it does help me, and so at this point I don't necessarily feel the need for a therapist as such. I do have a lot of people I talk to, I can share with, so I do have a strong support network in that way. But at the start of my illness, where it was completely dark, yes, I did have somebody I was going to regularly, and in fact my husband and I had also gone together for a few sessions, because we were both really struggling. I think if I ever feel the need, I'm always for it, and of course you have to find somebody who gels with you, and vice versa, but I think it's definitely something that should not be stigmatized or even hyped up. It should be something you can do quite easily if you feel the need.
Are there easily accessible cancer support groups in the country?
I wouldn't say for everybody, no. I think it's easier for I think now if you are on social media, you're on the internet, I think there are still groups you can find relatively more easily. I'm not sure it's true for every income segment. I'm a poor rural person living in a rural area. I'm not sure, unless there's an NGO out there which is actually doing something, and they know about that. So I think definitely we need more, and we need them at every level, and I think if hospitals and doctors can really help to build some of these, and then I think that can be the most feasible way, because they can always connect their patients to a support group. So I think if they can really get actively involved, it would really help, because a lot of people are taking individual efforts. A lot of people are doing it. In fact, I have myself now started an initiative to set up one such group. So I know people like me who are trying to do it, but for it to scale up, definitely we need partnerships with hospitals, with doctors. Only then we'll be able to reach everybody who needs this help.
But Urvashi, has your diet changed drastically? Do you at all get to eat food from outside?
Yeah, I feel, and I'm actually taking support from a nutritionist, and so she's given me actually a very strict diet plan, which I'm not fully adhering to, which I'm sure she's not very happy about, but I do treat myself. I do treat myself. I feel that I'm putting in all this effort to live day to day. If I can't even treat myself, then what's the point? So I do indulge, and but obviously I am disciplined
On a daily basis, like you said, there is something that you show to the world, and then there is something that is going on behind that facade. Do you want to just share with us what it is really like to get up every morning and go to work?
Actually, sometimes it's even before the morning. One has not had a very peaceful sleep. It's sometimes disturbed. There's strange dreams that you have. And so then whatever sleep you manage, you get up. And like I said, there's lots of anxious thoughts, and they float in and out. You try to ignore them. You try to just be very normal and go about your routine, but they're there in the background. But you get dressed, you get yourself to work. The distractions certainly help. I think it helps to have colleagues and others, so that certainly helps. But yeah, in the quiet moments you get, you still have that anxiety, you still have those issues. Physically you're kind of feeling up and down through the day, but that's not something you really say to anybody. There's periods of real fatigue. You wish you could just sleep in the office, but that's not really feasible, so you kind of power through that. And then yeah, I mean, the end of the day, sort of, you get back, you try to have your meal, and yeah, I think again it's about your mind. A lot of it is in your mind. People think of cancer as a very physical disease, and it is, but I honestly find the physical part much easier to handle. I find the mind, the really in this situation, and my anxiety, and all the kind of fears you have for the future, and all the depression, all the guilt you feel. There's a lot of guilt you feel because, for instance, the impact it's had on my husband's life. You kind of, I know it's not my fault, but you do feel, like, I wish this hadn't happened to me. So there's a million thoughts, and trying to go about your day managing these million thoughts is really very, very difficult. So I think that is the most hidden part of this daily battle.
Thank you, really. Thank you for sharing, so much of your experience of what you're going through, of, what, like I said, what we see, what we don't see, and, making us a little bit wiser and hopefully, more empathetic towards what people go through around us. Currently, I think as a society, we've lost that empathy anyway, but, so crucial for you to speak up, so crucial for more groups to come together. And of course, I think the key, as you said, remains is the fact that it has to, that training has to filter down. It has to filter down to our doctors. It has to filter down to our therapists. So I think much work is still needed. And, I would have to agree with you over your mother that, thankfully you've spoken about it, and, keep speaking about it. Thanks very much for joining me, Urvashi. More power to you. And, really hope that you stay well and that you stay stable going forward, and your medication eases up, and to better days for you. Thank you, Urvashi.
Thank you so much.